The knife was halfway through the frosting when Tessa's voice sliced through the chatter, sharper than the plastic blade in my hand. "God, you are selfish," she announced, loud enough for every parent in the play cafe to hear. "Just like your mom, cutting it like you are the only one who matters." I froze. It was supposed to be a safe, simple fifth birthday for Oliver, but in 12 words, my sister reopened a 30-year-old wound. The scent of roasting espresso beans and sanitized vinyl mats was supposed to be the smell of victory. I stood near the entrance of Brightboro Play Loft, a cup of decaf coffee warming my hands, watching my son Oliver dive headfirst into a pit of foam blocks. He was 5 years old today. 5. It felt like a milestone not just for him, but for the quiet, steady life I had spent the last half-decade building from scratch. I had chosen this venue specifically because it was the antithesis of the chaotic, performance-heavy parties my mother used to throw. There were no clowns with terrifying makeup, no forced talent shows where the children had to recite poetry for applause, and no crystal stemware that everyone was terrified of breaking. Brightboro, tucked away in a quiet corner of Hawthorne Ridge, was all soft edges, muted colors, and sound-absorbing panels. It was safe. It was manageable. I checked the time on the wall clock. It was 10 minutes past 1 in the afternoon. The party had officially started 10 minutes ago, and the turnout was perfect. 6 of Oliver's classmates from kindergarten were already here, stripping off their shoes and sprinting toward the climbing structure. Their parents were settling into the lounge chairs I had arranged in a semicircle, chatting easily about summer camps and soccer schedules. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders dropped an inch. I had done it. I had curated a bubble of normalcy. My father, Graham, was sitting in one of the corner armchairs, nursing a cup of tea. He looked older than his 62 years. His posture slumped as if he were trying to occupy as little space as possible. When I looked at him, I felt that familiar, dull ache in my chest, a mixture of love and frustration. He had arrived exactly on time, brought a modest gift wrapped in blue paper, and had barely spoken 3 sentences since walking in. "He looks happy, Maddie," my best friend Carmen said, appearing at my elbow. She handed me a napkin. "You, on the other hand, look like you are waiting for a bomb to go off. Relax. The pizza is ordered. The kids are not screaming. You are winning." I took the napkin and smiled, though the tension didn't fully leave my jaw. "I just want it to stay this way," I said. "Simple." "It is simple," Carmen assured me. "Look at him." I looked. Oliver was laughing, his face flushed pink, dragging a foam block twice his size toward a fortress he was building with his best friend. Leo, he looked unburdened. That was all I wanted. I wanted him to have a childhood where he didn't have to read the room temperature before he spoke. I wanted him to know that his birthday was about him, not about how well his mother could impress the neighbors. "Is she coming?" Carmen asked quietly, her voice dropping a register. She didn't have to use a name. We both knew who she meant. "She said she would be here by 1, I said, keeping my eyes on the kids. "But you know, Tessa, time is a suggestion." "Maybe she won't show," Carmen said. "Maybe she got stuck in traffic. Maybe she decided to go to brunch instead." "She will show," I said. "She likes the audience." My sister Tessa was 3 years older than me, and in the narrative of our family, she was the flame and I was the wood. She burned bright, consumed everything in her orbit, and I was usually the one left holding the ash. Since our mother died 4 years ago, I had hoped the dynamic would shift. I had hoped the competition, the constant, unspoken jockeying for approval, would vanish along with the person we were trying to impress. Instead, it had just curdled into something sharper. The glass door at the front of the cafe pushed open, and the air pressure in the room seemed to change. Tessa walked in. She was wearing sunglasses, even though it was overcast outside, and a coat that looked far too expensive for a Saturday afternoon at a play gym. She wasn't alone. She was dragging a massive box behind her, something so large it scraped against the doorframe as she entered. "I made it," she announced. her voice pitching up into a theatrical cheer that turned heads 3 tables away. She pulled her sunglasses off and scanned the room until her eyes landed on me. "Oh, Madeline, thank God. The traffic on Main Street was a nightmare. I thought I was going to be trapped in my car forever." She abandoned the giant box near the shoe cubbies and swept toward me, enveloping me in a hug that smelled of expensive perfume and wine. It was a performative hug, the kind meant to be seen rather than felt. "Happy birthday to the little man," she said, pulling back and holding me at arm's length. She looked me up and down, her smile tight. "You look tired, honey. Are you sleeping? You have those lines around your eyes again." "I am fine. Tessa," I said, stepping back gently. "I am glad you made it. Oliver is in the pit." "Well, I can't go in there in these heels," she laughed. Glancing around at the other parents, she waved at a few of them, even the ones she didn't know. "Hi, everyone. I am the aunt, the one who shows up late with the best gift." She gestured grandly back toward the door. The box was enormous. It had pictures of a motorized luxury Jeep on the side. It was loud, flashy, and completely inappropriate for the small apartment Oliver and I shared. "Tessa," I said, keeping my voice low, "that is too much. We talked about small gifts, books or Legos." "Oh, stop it," she said, waving her hand dismissively. "You are always so sensitive. Let the kid live a little. You act like joy is a finite resource. Maddie, it is exhausting." She breezed past me toward Graham, leaving me standing there with the sting of her words already settling under my skin. Too sensitive. It was one of our mother's favorite phrases. It was the silencer she used whenever I expressed a need or a boundary. Madeline is just too sensitive. Madeline makes everything complicated. I took a deep breath. Not today. I told myself, I will not perform for her. I will not let her control the mood. I focused on the logistics. The pizza arrived 15 minutes later. The kids ate with the ravenous, messy enthusiasm of 5-year-olds. I wiped tomato sauce off faces, refilled juice boxes, and made sure everyone had a seat. Tessa spent the entire meal holding court at the adults' table, telling a loud, embellished story about her recent trip to Cabo, while Graham nodded silently and stared into his tea. Every time I walked past, Tessa would throw out a little barb, disguised as affection. "Oh, look at her," she said to Kara Densley, one of the school moms. "Running around like a chicken. I keep telling her to hire help, but she has this martyrdom complex, just like Grandma used to have." Kara looked uncomfortable, her eyes darting to me and then away. "She seems to have it under control," Kara said politely. "It is not about control," Tessa said, dropping her voice to a stage whisper that was perfectly audible. "It is about the need to struggle. She loves the struggle." I gripped the stack of paper plates in my hands until the cardboard buckled. I walked to the trash can, deposited the plates, and walked back to the kids. I would not engage. Engagement was fuel. "Cake time," the staff member announced cheerfully. The transition was smooth. The kids gathered around the long, low table. I brought out the cake I had ordered from a local bakery. It was simple. Vanilla with strawberry filling, frosted in blue buttercream with a little fondant rocket ship on top. It wasn't a masterpiece, but Oliver had picked the design himself. We sang, the room filled with the chaotic, off-key chorus of children singing Happy Birthday. I watched Oliver's face in the glow of the 5 candles. His eyes were wide, reflecting the tiny flames. He looked pure and untouched by the tension humming in the air above him. He blew out the candles. The room clapped. "Okay, birthday boy," I said, picking up the cake knife. "Who gets the first slice?" "Leo!" Oliver shouted, pointing to his friend. "Leo it is." I smiled. I cut a neat triangular slice. I focused on the knife, sliding it through the layers, making sure the piece didn't crumble. I lifted it onto a paper plate and handed it to Leo. Then I turned back to the cake to cut the second slice for Oliver. "God, you are selfish," Tessa said. Her voice wasn't a whisper this time. It was a sharp, clear statement that cut through the low murmur of the parents' conversation. I stopped, the knife hovering over the blue frosting. I turned my head slowly. Tessa was standing near the end of the table, her arms crossed, a look of genuine disgust on her face. "Excuse me?" I said, my voice barely audible. "Just like your mom," Tessa said, louder this time. She looked around the room, inviting everyone to share in her observation. "Cutting it like you are the only one who matters. You didn't even ask if anyone else wanted a piece. You just decided. Typical." The room went dead quiet. The silence was sudden and absolute. The hum of the refrigerator in the back corner seemed to roar. I felt the blood drain from my face. The logic of her accusation made no sense. I was cutting the cake for the children, starting with the birthday boy and his friend. That was how birthdays worked. That was how manners worked. But logic didn't matter. The venom in her voice was what hit me. It was hate, pure, unadulterated resentment, spilled out over a child's birthday cake. I froze. For a second. I was 7 years old again, standing in our kitchen while my mother listed my character flaws while creating a grocery list. Selfish, thoughtless, cold. I looked at Oliver. He was holding his fork, looking back and forth between me and his aunt, his smile faltering. He sensed the danger. That look on his face pulled me back. I was not 7. I was 33. I was the mother now. I steadied my hand. I set the knife down on the table with a soft click. I did not look at Tessa. I looked at the children. "We are here for Oliver," I said. My voice was calm, though my heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "And Oliver is hungry for cake. Who is next?" "Me," a little girl named Sophie chirped, oblivious to the adult frequency. "Coming right up. Sophie," I said. I forced my hand to move. I cut the slice. I put it on a plate. "Oh my God," Tessa laughed. It was a brittle, high-pitched sound. "Look at her. She is shaking. I am just joking. Madeline, you are so uptight. It is a joke." She looked at the other parents, seeking allies. "She has no sense of humor. Never has." I glanced up briefly. The other parents were looking at the floor, or at their children. Cara Densley was intently studying the nutrition label on a juice box. They were pretending not to hear. They were witnessing a humiliation and choosing the path of least resistance. I felt exposed. I felt a flush of heat crawl up my neck. I was the crazy sister. I was the one with the family drama. I was the one who couldn't keep her party normal. I felt a hand touch my arm. It was Carmen. She had moved quietly to my side. "Do you want me to walk her out?" Carmen whispered. Her voice was steel. "I will do it. I will tell her she is towed." I looked at Carmen, then at Tessa, who was now picking at a loose thread on her sleeve, looking bored, as if she hadn't just tried to assassinate my character in front of my son's kindergarten class. "No," I whispered back. "That is what she wants. She wants a scene. I won't give it to her." I turned to the young woman working the cafe counter, who was watching with wide eyes. "Excuse me," I said. "Could you help us move the kids back to the play area? I think they are done with the sugar." "Yes," the girl said, jumping into action. "Okay, guys, who wants to go down the spiral slide?" The children cheered, the tension breaking as they scrambled away from the table. Oliver looked at me one last time. I gave him a thumbs up. He hesitated, then smiled and ran after Leo. I exhaled, a long, shaky breath that felt like it emptied my lungs completely. I spent the next 30 minutes in a daze. I busied myself with cleaning up the cake plates, wiping down the table, doing anything to avoid making eye contact with the other adults. I could feel their pity. It radiated off them like heat. Tessa didn't leave. She sat with Graham, speaking in low tones every time I looked over. Graham was nodding, looking miserable. But he didn't stand up. He didn't come over to me. He didn't tell her to stop. He just sat there, absorbing her narrative, just like he had done with Mom. Eventually, the party wound down. Parents collected their children, offering me overly bright smiles and quick goodbyes. "Great party, Madeline," Cara said, her eyes not quite meeting mine. Really, thanks for having us. Thank you for coming, I said. I walked them out. I helped Oliver with his shoes. I began gathering the gifts to load into the car. The giant box Tessa had brought was still sitting by the door, a monument to her need for dominance. "We are heading out," Tessa said, walking up behind me. She didn't apologize. She didn't acknowledge what happened. She just adjusted her sunglasses. "Graham is riding with me. We are going to stop by the cemetery to visit Mom. You should come." The audacity took my breath away. "No," I said. "I have to get the gifts home, and Oliver is tired." "Suit yourself," she shrugged. "Happy birthday, Oliver," she yelled toward my son, who waved distractedly. She walked out. Graham followed her. He paused at the door, looking back at me. He looked like he wanted to say something. His mouth opened, then closed. He turned and walked out after her. I was left alone in the quiet of the cafe with Carmen and the staff who were wiping down the floors. "You okay?" Carmen asked. She was packing the smaller gift bags into a tote. "No," I said honestly. "I am not." "She is a monster," Carmen said. "I mean it. Who does that at a 5-year-old's party?" "She does," I said. "She always does." I walked over to the gift table to check if we had missed anything. There was a pile of torn wrapping paper and empty juice boxes. I started clearing the debris. As I lifted a crumpled piece of blue tissue paper, I saw a napkin sitting on the table. It wasn't balled up like the trash. It was folded flat, placed deliberately under one of the goodie bags. I picked it up. It was a standard white cafe napkin. Written on it, in blue ballpoint ink, were 2 words: "Ask Graham." I stared at the handwriting. It was jagged, hurried. It didn't look like a child's writing. It didn't match the playful font on the birthday cards. I turned it over. Nothing on the back. "Ask Graham." A cold prickle of unease started at the base of my spine. It felt like a warning, or a taunt. I looked around the room. The other parents were gone. The staff were busy in the back. Who had left this? "Carmen," I said, "did you see who was standing here?" "When?" Carmen asked, looking up from the floor. "After the cake, when everyone was leaving." "Everyone," she said. "Tessa, Graham, Kara, the whole crew. Why?" I crumpled the napkin in my hand, my fingers tightening around the paper. "Nothing," I said. "Just trash." I shoved the napkin into my pocket. I didn't want to show Carmen. I didn't want to explain the sudden, irrational fear that had just spiked in my chest. Ask Graham what? That night, the apartment was quiet. Oliver had crashed hard, exhausted by the sugar and the play. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the streetlights from outside casting long, slanted shadows across the room. My body was tired, but my mind was racing. I replayed the scene in the cafe over and over. "God, you are selfish. Just like your mom." It wasn't just an insult. It was a key. Tessa knew exactly where the bruises were. She knew that my greatest fear was turning into our mother, a woman who saw her children as extensions of her own ego, who used guilt as currency. Tessa had used that fear to silence me. But why now? Why today? I reached over to the nightstand and turned on the lamp. I pulled the crumpled napkin out of my jeans pocket, which were draped over the chair. I smoothed it out on the mattress. Ask Graham. I thought about my father's face at the party, the way he wouldn't look at me, the way he let Tessa lead him out the door like an obedient dog, the way he had said, "Don't dig into old things." The last time I asked about Mom's estate papers, something was wrong. The phrase, "selfish like your mom," hadn't been a random outburst of temper. It felt rehearsed. It felt like a distraction. Like a magician waving a bright red scarf with one hand so you don't notice what the other hand is doing. I sat up, the mattress springs creaking softly. I was done. I was done being the peacekeeper. I was done swallowing the poison to keep the family dinner table from overturning. I looked at the napkin one last time. "Okay," I whispered to the empty room. "I will ask him." I folded the napkin and placed it inside the drawer of my nightstand. underneath a stack of Oliver's drawings. It wasn't just a piece of trash anymore. It was evidence. And tomorrow, I was going to find out what it meant. The morning sun hitting the window of Juniper Slate Cafe was bright, aggressive, and entirely at odds with the knot of dread tightening in my stomach. I sat at a small corner table, nursing a cup of Earl Grey tea that had gone cold 10 minutes ago. Across from me, my father, Graham, was systematically tearing a sugar packet into tiny, uniform strips. He hadn't looked me in the eye since he sat down. "Dad," I said gently, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. "I am not trying to start a fight. I just want to understand." Graham sighed, a heavy rattling sound that seemed to pull his shoulders down even further. He looked tired. Since Mom died, he had become a man made of paper, fragile, thin, easily folded by the strongest personality in the room, and that personality was undoubtedly Tessa. "It was a birthday party. Madeline," he said, staring at the shredded paper on the table. "Emotions run high. You know how your sister gets. She likes to be the center of attention. It doesn't mean anything." I reached into my purse and pulled out the napkin I had found the day before. I smoothed it out on the table between us. The blue ink was stark against the white paper. "Ask Graham." "I found this in the gift pile," I said. "Someone wanted me to talk to you. Specifically you." Graham's eyes flicked to the napkin, and for a split second, I saw it. A flash of genuine panic. It wasn't confusion, it was recognition. His hand twitched, knocking his spoon against his saucer with a sharp clink. "That is just trash," he said, too quickly. "Probably one of the kids scribbling." "It is not a kid's handwriting, Dad, and Tessa said I was selfish. She said I was selfish just like Mom. You know how specific that is. You know what that word did to me growing up?" I leaned forward. "What is going on? Why would someone leave this note? Is there something about the estate? About the money?" Graham's face hardened. It was a defense mechanism I recognized from my childhood. The wall of silence he would erect whenever Mom went on a rampage. He would simply shut down to survive. "Stop it," he said sharply. "There is no money. Madeline, the estate is settled. It has been settled for years. Do not dig into old things. You will only make yourself miserable." "I am not digging for misery," I said. "I am digging for the truth. Why did you look so scared when she said that yesterday?" "I was embarrassed," he snapped, his voice rising enough to turn a few heads at the nearby tables. "I was embarrassed that my daughters were making a scene in public. That is all. Now drop it." He stood up, scraping his chair back. "I have to go. I promised Tessa I would help her with her garden." He threw a $5 bill on the table and walked out without looking back. I sat there, frozen. Do not dig into old things. It wasn't a denial. It was a command. And the way he had said it, desperate, defensive, confirmed exactly what I feared. He was hiding something, and he was hiding it to protect Tessa. A wave of familiar, heavy guilt washed over me. I felt like the problem. I felt like the difficult daughter, the one who couldn't just let things go, the one who had to pick at the scab until it bled. Maybe he's right. The voice in my head whispered, maybe I am making this into a conspiracy when it is just a dysfunctional family dynamic. Maybe I am the drama queen. I closed my eyes and took a breath. Then I thought of Oliver. I thought of his face yesterday when Tessa had snapped. I thought of the confusion in his eyes. If I let this go, if I let Tessa dominate the narrative and let Graham bury the truth, I was teaching my son that our reality didn't matter. I was teaching him that to be safe, you had to be silent. I opened my eyes. The guilt was still there, but I pushed it into a corner. I wasn't asking these questions to punish Graham. I wasn't asking to hurt Tessa. I was asking because I refused to carry this shame into my son's life. I was the firewall now. I picked up the napkin, folded it carefully, and put it back in my purse. By the time I got back to my apartment, the emotional hangover had set in. I felt drained, my limbs heavy. I wanted to curl up on the couch and watch cartoons with Oliver, but he was at his dad's house for the weekend. a scheduled visitation that usually gave me time to recharge. Today, the silence in the apartment just felt loud. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. It was a message from Kara Densley, one of the moms from the party. Kara was nice, though we weren't close. She was the kind of person who avoided conflict at all costs, so a direct message from her was unusual. "Hey, Madeline." The text read, "I debated sending this, but I thought you should know. I was in the bathroom at the cafe yesterday when Tessa was washing her hands. She was talking to another woman. I think a friend she brought? She was saying some pretty heavy stuff. She said you can't manage money and that she had to bring the big gift because you will probably be asking for donations next. It sounded specific. I just didn't want you to be blindsided if people start talking. You are a great mom. Ignore her." I stared at the screen, the white letters blurring slightly. Asking for donations. It was such a grotesque lie. I had a job. I was an administrative assistant at a logistics firm. It wasn't a glamorous career, and the pay was modest, but I paid my rent. I paid for Oliver's clothes. I paid for his soccer. I had zero debt other than my car payment. I had built a fortress of financial responsibility specifically so no one could ever say I needed them. And Tessa was out there, standing in a public restroom, dismantling that fortress with a few casual sentences. I felt a sudden, sharp suspicion. I opened my laptop and logged into the invite site I had used for the party. I had been meticulous about the invitation. I remembered typing a specific line at the bottom. "No gifts needed. Your presence is the only thing Oliver wants." I scrolled down to the event description. The line was gone. I blinked, refreshing the page. It was definitely gone. The description ended abruptly after the address. I checked the edit history log. The site showed a modification made 2 days before the party. I stared at the timestamp. I hadn't logged in that day, but Tessa had the password. I had given it to her 3 weeks ago when she offered to upload a cute baby photo of Oliver for the banner, a banner she never made. She had deleted the "no gifts" line. It seemed so petty, so small, but the implication was precise. By removing that line, she ensured that when she walked in with a $500 motorized Jeep, she looked like the generous hero, and I looked like the mother who had failed to set boundaries. Or worse, the mother who was secretly hoping someone would buy the expensive things she couldn't afford. She had engineered the contrast. My phone chimed again. This time, it was Tessa. "I am sorry you took it that way yesterday." Her text read, "I was just stressed. I just worry you are turning into mom in the worst ways, so rigid and defensive. I want us to be close. Let's do lunch next week?" My treat. I read the message twice. "I am sorry you took it that way." The classic non-apology, and then the twist of the knife, turning into mom. She was weaponizing my trauma against me. She knew I spent my entire adult life trying to be the opposite of our mother. Telling me I was rigid was a way to make me question my boundaries. If I said no to lunch, I proved her point. If I said yes, I accepted her behavior. I didn't reply. I put the phone face down. I needed to clear my head. I opened my email, intending to distract myself with work, but a new message in my personal inbox caught my eye. The subject line was, "Pinebrook Youth Soccer, Sponsorship Inquiry." I frowned. Pinebrook was Oliver's league. I had paid his registration fees in full 2 months ago. I clicked the email. "Dear Ms. Bailey, I hope you are having a wonderful weekend. I wanted to reach out personally to thank you for your sister's kind email. Tessa contacted us this morning offering to sponsor Oliver's spring season fees. We have a discreet scholarship fund for families undergoing financial hardship, but it is rare for a family member to reach out directly to cover costs. Please let her know we can certainly refund your initial payment and route the billing to her if that helps with your current situation. We want to make sure Oliver stays on the field. Best, Sarah Jenkins." League Director. The rage that hit me was so sudden, so white-hot, that I actually gasped. She had called the soccer league. She had called the director of my son's sports program, a woman I saw every Saturday, a woman who lived in my neighborhood, and told her, effectively, that I couldn't afford to pay for a 5-year-old's recreational soccer team. It wasn't just an insult, it was reputational sabotage. She was painting a picture of me as a destitute, struggling single mother who needed rescuing, and she was doing it in a way that looked like charity. So if I got angry, I would look ungrateful. I stood up and paced the small length of my kitchen. My hands were shaking. I wanted to call Tessa and scream. I wanted to drive to her house and throw the motorized Jeep through her front window. No, I told myself. That is what Mom would do. That is what Tessa wants. If I screamed, I was the unstable sister. If I cried, I was the victim. I forced myself to sit back down. I took 3 deep breaths, counting to 4 on the inhale, 4 on the exhale. I cracked my knuckles. I hit reply. Dear Sarah, thank you so much for reaching out. I think there has been a misunderstanding. As you know, Oliver's fees are paid in full, and our household finances are stable. My sister means well, but she is sometimes overzealous in her desire to be involved. Please do not refund my payment, and please do not accept any funds from her regarding Oliver. I would appreciate it if we could keep our account privacy strict moving forward. See you on the field Saturday. Best, Madeline. I hit send. It was polite, it was professional, it was dignified. But as I closed the laptop, I felt a cold knot of certainty in my chest. This wasn't just sibling rivalry. This was a campaign. Tessa was systematically trying to dismantle my credibility as an adult and a parent. I grabbed my phone and called Carmen. She answered on the second ring. Tell me you didn't kill her, Carmen said. She called the soccer league, I said, my voice flat. She tried to pay his fees. She told them I was a hardship case. What? Carmen's voice went up an octave. Maddie, that is psycho. That is calculated. I know. You need to write this down, Carmen said firmly. Seriously, I listen to enough crime podcasts to know that when things get weird, you document, get a notebook, or a spreadsheet, write down the date, what she did, and who witnessed it, screenshots, emails, everything. You think I need evidence? I think you are dealing with someone who is gaslighting you, Carmen said. And gaslighters rely on you forgetting the details. Do not let her rewrite history. I hung up and immediately created a new folder on my desktop. I named it For My Sanity. I started typing. October 12th. The birthday party. Quote, selfish like your mom. Witness. Entire party. Note. Napkin found saying, Ask Graham. October 13th. Cara D. Text. Tessa spreading rumors about financial instability. October 13th. RSVP site tampering. Deleted no gifts line. October 13th. Soccer league interference. Attempted to frame me as needing financial aid. I stared at the list. Seeing it in black and white was chilling. It wasn't a collection of accidents. It was a pattern of behavior designed to position Tessa as the savior and me as the failure. But why? Why now? The napkin came back to me. Ask Graham. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was all a smokescreen for something else. Graham's reaction at the cafe had been fear. He was afraid of something. I looked at the clock. It was 4 p.m. Tessa had said she was taking Graham to the garden center, but Graham usually went home for a nap around 3. I grabbed my keys. My father still lived in the house we grew up in. It was a sprawling 2-story colonial that had once been pristine but was now gathering dust in the corners. Since Mom died, Graham had let the place slowly calcify. He hadn't changed a single throw pillow or moved a single vase. It was a museum to a woman who had made him miserable. I let myself in with my key. The house smelled of old paper and lemon polish. Dad? I called out. No answer. His car was in the drive. So he was likely in the backyard or asleep. I walked into the living room. I told myself I was just checking on him, but my feet moved toward the study. This was where Mom used to keep her command center, the desk where she managed the bills, the social calendar, and the family's entire existence. Graham had piled boxes in the corner of the room, things he kept promising to sort through but never did. I walked over to the stack. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. The napkin said, Ask Graham. But Graham wouldn't talk, so I had to find what he wasn't saying. I opened the top box. It was full of old tax returns from the 90s. I closed it. I opened the second box. Photo albums. I flipped through one, seeing pictures of me and Tessa as children. In almost every photo, Tessa was in the center, smiling brightly, and I was slightly off to the side, looking at the ground or holding onto Graham's leg. Even then, I moved a stack of National Geographics and saw a smaller, gray plastic file box tucked against the wall. It looked newer than the others. I pulled it out. It wasn't locked. I flipped open the lid. Inside were hanging folders, neatly labeled: house deed, life insurance, vehicle titles. I thumbed through them, my heart beating faster. This was the current stuff. Why was it on the floor? At the very back of the box, there was a red folder. The label was handwritten in thick black marker. Estate, final. I froze. Graham had told me the estate was settled years ago. Everything was split 50-50. According to the will Mom had read to us a year before she passed. Tessa got the jewelry, I got the car, and the cash assets were divided equally. It hadn't been a fortune. Mom spent a lot. But it was enough to help me with a down payment on a condo if I ever wanted one. I reached for the red folder. "What are you doing?" The voice boomed from the doorway. I jumped, dropping the folder back into the box. Graham was standing there. He was wearing his gardening gloves, holding a trowel. His face was pale, his eyes wide. I was just looking for the old photos," I stammered, a lie falling clumsy from my lips. "I wanted to find a baby picture of Oliver." "That is not the photo box," Graham said. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, dropping the trowel on the carpet. He reached down and grabbed the gray box, pulling it away from me. His hands were trembling, visibly shaking. "This is private paperwork, Madeline," he said, his voice breathy and high. "You have no business snooping in my financial records." "I saw a folder," I said. Standing up, I tried to make myself tall. "It said estate, final." "Dad, you told me the estate was closed 3 years ago. Why is there a final folder in a box of current papers?" "It is just old copies," he said, clutching the box to his chest like a shield. "Just keeping things organized. Tessa was helping me sort it out." "Tessa?" I asked. "Tessa has been going through these papers?" "She helps me," he said defensively. "She handles the details. You know you are not good with the complicated stuff. Maddie, you get overwhelmed." There it was again. The narrative. Maddie gets overwhelmed. Maddie can't handle it. "I am 33 years old," I said quietly. "I handle my own life just fine. Why is Tessa handling your estate papers?" "Because I asked her to," he shouted. "Now please, leave it alone. Go home to your son." He turned his back on me and shoved the box onto a high shelf, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. I looked at his back. He looked terrified. He looked like a man who was being held hostage in his own home. "Okay," I said softly. "I'll go." I walked out of the house, my heart thumping a jagged rhythm against my ribs. He was lying. He was lying. And Tessa was the one organizing the lies. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay in bed, the glow of the streetlights painting lines on my ceiling. The pieces were swirling in my head, refusing to click into place but suggesting a picture I didn't want to see. Selfish like your mom. Ask Graham. The estate folder. Tessa trying to pay for soccer. Tessa deleting the no gifts line. It all centered on money. Tessa was obsessed with portraying me as broke, incompetent, and needy. Why? To feed her ego? Or was it to cover up the fact that she knew something about my finances that I didn't? I rolled over and grabbed my phone. It was 2 a.m. I opened my banking app. Everything looked normal. Checking, savings. The balances were low but accurate. I hesitated, then opened the Credit Karma app. I hadn't checked it in months. I usually just glanced at the score and closed it. My score was fine, 720. I clicked on the Credit Report tab. I scrolled down past the active accounts, my car loan, my one credit card. I clicked on Inquiries. There were the usual ones from when I bought my car 2 years ago. And then, at the very top of the list, a new entry, Redfern Lending, date, September 28th. Type, soft inquiry, September 28th. That was 3 weeks ago. I stared at the name, Redfern Lending. I had never heard of them. I had certainly never applied for a loan with them. A soft inquiry usually meant a pre-approval check or a background check. But why would a lender be checking me? I hadn't applied for a credit card. I hadn't applied for a mortgage. I clicked for details. The inquiry had been initiated online. I sat up in bed, the duvet falling away from my shoulders. The air in the room felt suddenly freezing. Tessa had been offering to help me. She had been trying to pay my bills. She had access to Graham's papers that likely contained my social security number from old beneficiary forms. If she was trying to prove I was incompetent, was she also trying to prove I was broke? Or was she trying to make me broke? The coincidence was too sharp. The timing was too precise. 3 weeks ago, she gets access to Graham's papers. 3 weeks ago, a random lender checks my credit. Yesterday, she publicly humiliates me about money. This wasn't just emotional cruelty anymore. This wasn't just a sister being mean at a birthday party. This was something practical, something bureaucratic, something damaging. I took a screenshot of the inquiry. I added it to the For My Sanity folder. Then I opened a new browser tab and searched for Estate Lawyers, Hawthorne Ridge. I wasn't going to ask Graham again. I wasn't going to text Tessa. I was done asking. If they wanted to play games with legal documents and financial records, I wasn't going to play as the little sister anymore. I was going to play as a stranger. I found a firm called Park Sloan Legal Group. Their website was clean, professional. One of the partners, Elena Park, specialized in probate and estate litigation. I clicked the Contact Us button. My name is Madeline Bailey. I typed, I suspect there may be irregularities regarding my late mother's estate, and I have recently discovered unauthorized activity on my credit report that may be connected to family members. I need to speak to someone about protecting myself. I hit send. I set the phone down on the nightstand. My hands were finally steady. The fear was still there, but it had changed. It wasn't the trembling, childish fear of being scolded. It was the cold, hard clarity of someone realizing they are in a war. You want to call me selfish, Tessa? I whispered into the dark. Fine. Watch how selfish I get when I'm protecting my son. The reception area of Park Sloan Legal Group was quieter than a library and smelled faintly of lemon oil and expensive carpet. I sat on a gray wool sofa, my hands clasped so tightly in my lap that my knuckles were turning white. I felt ridiculous. I felt like a fraud. I was a single mother who bought her clothes at Target, sitting in a waiting room that probably charged more for an hour of time than I made in a week. Ms. Bailey? I looked up. A woman stood in the doorway of the conference room. She looked to be in her late 40s, wearing a sharp navy blazer and glasses with thick black frames. She didn't look like the sharks I saw on television. She looked tired, competent, and entirely unamused. I am Elena Park, she said, extending a hand. Come on in. I followed her into a small office lined with bookshelves. I sat in the leather chair across from her desk, my purse clutching my stomach like a shield. I feel a little silly being here, I started, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I don't even know if I have a case. I don't have a lot of money. Something weird is happening with my credit. And my family is acting strange, and I didn't know who else to ask. Elena Park took off her glasses and set them on the desk. She looked at me, her expression softening just a fraction. Ms. Bailey, she said, half the people who walk through that door start by apologizing for being there. You are paying for my time. You do not need to apologize for using it. Tell me about the credit. I took a breath and explained. I told her about the soft inquiry from Redfern Lending. I told her about the napkin at the birthday party. I told her about the folder in my father's house labeled Estate, Final. I left out the emotional parts, the insults, the cake, the humiliation. I stuck to the data. Elena listened without interrupting. taking notes on a yellow legal pad. When I finished, she tapped her pen against the paper. "The inquiry is the most concrete thing you have right now," she said. "Redfern Lending is a subprime lender. They specialize in high-interest personal loans for people with thin credit files. If you didn't apply, someone else did. And to apply, they would need your social security number, your current address, and your date of birth." "My father has all of that," I said quietly. "And my sister has access to his files." "We can't prove who did it yet," Elena said. "But we can stop the bleeding. The first step is practical, not dramatic. We freeze everything." She turned her monitor so I could see it. "We are going to file a fraud alert with all 3 bureaus. Then we are going to freeze your credit. It means no one, not even you, can open a new line of credit without a PIN number. It is a pain in the neck if you are buying a car, but it is a lifesaver if someone is trying to steal your identity." Watching her navigate the websites was strangely soothing. Click, click, frozen. It was a digital lock clicking into place. "Now," Elena said, leaning back. "About the estate. You said it was settled 4 years ago?" "Yes. My mother died in 2019. My father is the executor, but he told me everything was split 50-50. "And you have copies of the probate documents?" "No," I admitted, feeling a flush of shame. "I trusted them. I didn't ask for papers." "That is common," Elena said, waving off my embarrassment. "But trust is not a legal strategy. If there is a folder labeled final that you haven't seen, we need to see what the court saw. Cedar Hollow County has a public portal. We can pull the entire probate file right now. It costs about 50 cents a page." "Do it," I said. Elena logged into the county clerk's portal. She typed in my mother's name, Margaret Bailey. A list of results populated the screen. "Okay," Elena muttered, scrolling. "Petition for probate. Order for final distribution. Here we go. It looks like there was an amendment filed about 6 months after the initial will." "An amendment?" I asked, leaning forward. "No, Mom never amended the will. She was in hospice for the last 6 months. She was barely conscious half the time." "The record says otherwise," Elena said. "Requesting the document now." We waited while the download bar crawled across the screen. The room was silent, save for the hum of the computer fan. My heart was thumping a slow, heavy rhythm against my ribs. The file opened. It was a PDF, a scan of a paper document. "Here it is," Elena said. "Codicil to the last will and testament of Margaret Bailey, dated October 12th, 2019. October 12th. That was 3 days before she died. I stared at the screen. "She couldn't hold a pen on October 12th, I whispered. "I was there. I was feeding her ice chips." Elena zoomed in on the signature page. "Look at this." I leaned in. The signature read, Margaret Bailey. But it was shaky. That part was believable. But something about the page looked wrong. "The ink density," I said, pointing to the bottom of the page. "Look at the witness line. The signature for the witness is pitch black. Thick lines. But Mom's signature, it looks gray. It looks like it was photocopied." "It could just be a bad scan," Elena said, though she sounded skeptical. "But look at the witness name." I read the printed name below the signature line. Mara Hensley. "I know Mara," I said. "She was a nurse at the hospice center. She was nice." "Look at the second page," Elena said, scrolling down. "Where the witness signs the affidavit." I looked. The signature there was clear, but the printed name underneath was spelled differently. Mara Hensley, 2 R's. "A typo?" I asked. "Maybe," Elena said, "but legal documents are usually more careful than that, especially when drafted by an attorney." She scrolled further down to the notary block. The stamp was oval, the standard California notary seal, Dale Mercer, Notary Public, commission number 2145678. My commission expires July 14th, 2022. Elena frowned. She pulled a binder from her shelf and flipped through it. She ran her finger down a chart. "What is it?" I asked. "The commission number," Elena said softly. "In California, notary commission numbers are sequential. They are issued chronologically. In 2018, when this commission would have been issued to expire in 2022, the numbers started with a sequence of 22. This number starts with 21. It is from an older batch, a batch that would have expired before this document was signed." She looked at me, her face grave. "I am not saying it is fake, Madeline. I am saying it is inconsistent. And in probate law, inconsistent is dangerous." I stared at the screen. The anomalies were small. A typo, a gray signature, a number that was slightly off, but together, they formed a picture that made my stomach turn. "What does it mean?" I asked. "It means the document that changed your mother's will, the document that likely gave Tessa control over the estate paperwork, might not be valid," Elena said. "And if it is not valid, then everything that happened afterward is open to challenge." I left the office an hour later with a thick envelope of printouts tucked into my bag. I felt different. I wasn't just the sad, overwhelmed single mom anymore. I was a woman holding a stack of evidence. I didn't go home. I drove straight to my father's house. I didn't call first. I knew if I called, he would make an excuse. He would be napping or out. I needed to catch him in the space between his lies. I parked in the driveway and walked up the front path. The hydrangeas were dead, brown heads bowing toward the ground. Mom used to prune them religiously. I unlocked the door and walked in. "Dad?" He was in the kitchen, making toast. The smell of burnt bread hung in the air. When he saw me, he jumped, nearly dropping the butter knife. "Madeline," he breathed, "you scared me. You shouldn't just barge in." "I have a key," I said calmly. I walked over to the kitchen table and set the envelope down. I didn't sit. I stood on the other side of the island, creating a physical barrier between us. "We need to talk about October 12th, 2019, I said. Graham's face went gray. He turned back to his toast, scraping the black char off into the sink with aggressive, jerky movements. "I don't know what you are talking about," he said. "3 days before Mom died." I said, "A codicil was signed. It changed the executor powers. It gave Tessa authority to handle the administrative distribution of the assets. I have the document. Dad." He froze. The scraping stopped. "I asked you yesterday about the folder," I said. "You told me not to dig, but I dug, and I found a document with a witness name spelled wrong and a notary number that doesn't match the year. Did Mom sign that? Dad? Did she really sign it?" Graham turned around. He looked cornered. His eyes were wet, red-rimmed. "She wanted it done," he said, his voice cracking. "She was worried about you." "Worried about me?" "You were a wreck. Madeline," he shouted, the sudden volume making me flinch. "You were crying all the time. You were sleeping in the chair next to her bed. You couldn't handle the doctors. You couldn't handle the funeral arrangements. You were too emotional." The words hit me like a slap. Too emotional. It was the ultimate silencer in our family. If you had feelings, you were invalid. If you cried, you were incompetent. "So because I was grieving my dying mother," I said, my voice shaking but loud, "you decided I wasn't capable of reading a will?" "Tessa stepped up," Graham insisted. "Tessa said she would handle the paperwork so you could just be with Mom. She said she would protect you from the stress. She brought the notary. She handled the filing. I just wanted peace. Madeline, I just wanted everyone to stop fighting." "You didn't want peace," I said, realizing the truth as I spoke it. "You wanted the path of least resistance, and Tessa is the path of most resistance, so you gave her whatever she wanted to shut her up." "She is your sister," he pleaded. "She loves you. She was trying to help." "She wasn't helping," I said. "She was taking control, and you let her." I looked at him, this weak, terrified man who had sacrificed his younger daughter to appease his older one. I felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the money or the deception, but for the father I wished I had. I am going to find out the truth about that document. Dad, I said. And if Tessa forged it, I am not going to protect her, and I am not going to protect you. I turned and walked out. He didn't follow me. He didn't call my name. He just went back to scraping his burnt toast. I needed a reality check. I needed someone who wasn't inside the gaslight bubble of the Bailey family. I drove 3 streets over to a small brick bungalow with a pristine lawn. It was the home of Mrs. Lorraine Wexler. Lorraine had been my mother's neighbor and walking partner for 20 years. She was 70 now, sharp as a tack, and had never particularly liked Tessa. She opened the door before I could knock, wiping her hands on a floral apron. "Maddie?" she said, her eyebrows shooting up. "Is everything okay? You look like you have seen a ghost." "I think I'm chasing one," I said. "Can I come in?" 5 minutes later, I was sitting at her kitchen table with a plate of store-bought cookies and a glass of milk. It was the same comfort she had offered me when I was 10 and scraped my knee. "Lorraine," I said, "I need to ask you something about the end, when Mom was sick." Lorraine sat down opposite me, her face serious. "Okay. Did she ever talk to you about the will? Or about Tessa handling her papers?" Lorraine frowned. She traced the pattern on the tablecloth with a weathered finger. "She talked about it a lot," Lorraine said. "She was worried." "Worried about what?" "About Tessa." Lorraine said simply, "Your mother loved Tessa. You know that. But she knew how she was. She knew Tessa needed to control things. About a month before she passed, your mom gave me a spare key to her safety deposit box. She said, 'If anything happens, don't let Tessa near the documents alone.'" I felt the air leave the room. "She said that?" "She did," Lorraine nodded. "She said, 'Madeline is the soft one, but she is the honest one. Tessa rewrites things.'" "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "I didn't want to cause trouble," Lorraine said, looking guilty. "After she died, Graham told me everything was handled. He said they used a lawyer. I assumed your father had a spine. I am sorry. Maddie." "It is okay," I said. "You are telling me now. Tessa rewrites things." It was exactly what was happening. She was rewriting the past, rewriting my financial status, rewriting my character. I left Lorraine's house feeling a strange mix of sorrow and vindication. I wasn't crazy. My mother had seen it too. She had seen it coming. I checked my phone before starting the car. I had a dozen notifications. Instagram, Facebook. Tessa had posted a story. It was a black screen with white text. Set to sad. Instrumental music. It is so hard when you try to help people who are committed to being victims. Some people use their kids as props for sympathy instead of standing on their own 2 feet. Sending love to all the aunties who step up when the moms check out. Family drama. Truth. She didn't name me. She didn't have to. Aunties who step up. Victims. Kids as props. It was a direct missile aimed at my reputation. And because she didn't tag me, if I responded, I would look like the aggressor. I would look like the drama she was hashtagging about. My chest tightened. I wanted to reply. I wanted to post the screenshot of the credit inquiry. I wanted to post the photo of the fake signature. No. Elena's voice echoed in my head. "Inconsistent is dangerous. Keep records." I took a screenshot of the story. I added it to the For My Sanity folder. Then a text came in from Kara. "Kara. Hey, I saw Tessa's story. I am so sorry. Just so you know, she was at the coffee shop this morning telling people that she took care of everything after your mom died because you didn't even show up when it mattered. She said you were unavailable. It is making me sick to hear it. Knowing you were there every day." I stared at the phone. Didn't even show up. I was there. I was there holding the basin when Mom got sick. I was there reading to her when she couldn't open her eyes. I was there sleeping in the uncomfortable chair while Tessa went home to shower and recharge. The lie was so bold, so completely inverted from the truth, that it was breathtaking, but it was spreading, and because it was simple, Madeline was absent. Tessa was the hero. People would believe it. I drove home in a fog of rage. When I got to my apartment, I went straight to my closet. I had an old box on the top shelf, filled with obsolete electronics, old charging cables, a broken digital camera, and my old iPhone 6 from 5 years ago. I pulled the phone out. It had a cracked screen. I plugged it in and prayed it would turn on. It took 10 minutes to charge enough to boot up. The Apple logo appeared. I scrolled through the apps. I went to the voicemail tab. I had never deleted them. I couldn't bear to. I scrolled down to September 2019. Mom, mobile, September 20th, 2019. 10:14 a.m. Duration, 0:48. I pressed play. I held the phone to my ear. The sound of my mother's voice filled the small space of my bedroom. It was weak, breathy, broken by the rattle of her lungs. But it was her. Maddie, it is Mom. I wanted to talk to you while Tessa's at the store. I signed something yesterday, but I don't remember what it was. She said it was for the insurance, but I don't know. My head is so foggy. She coughed, a long, wet sound that made me close my eyes. If anything happens, she continued, her voice dropping to a whisper, don't let your sister be the only one holding the papers. You have to be strong. Maddie, I know you hate fighting, but you have to watch her. She wants what she wants. I love you. Baby, call me back. The message ended. I sat on the floor of my closet, the old phone pressed to my cheek, and wept. I wept for the mother who was scared in her final days. I wept for the warning I had ignored. I wept for the years I had spent thinking I was the crazy one, the sensitive one, the selfish one. She had tried to tell me. She wants what she wants. I played the message again. Then I recorded it onto my current phone. Then I emailed the file to myself and to Elena Park. I wiped my face. I stood up. I walked into the living room and opened my laptop. I looked at the For My Sanity folder. It was full of screenshots, dates, and now, audio files. I could go on Facebook right now. I could post the voicemail. I could blow Tessa's narrative out of the water. I could shame her in front of the entire town of Hawthorne Ridge. But that was a short-term win. That was just noise. Tessa wanted a fight. She wanted a screaming match because she could win a screaming match. She was louder, she was meaner, but she couldn't win against paper. She couldn't win against timestamps, mismatched commission numbers, and federal fraud alerts. I wasn't going to fight her in the comments section. I wasn't going to fight her at family dinners. I was going to verify every single document she had ever touched. I was going to lock down every cent of my financial life, and I was going to wait. I was going to wait until the pile of evidence was so high that when I finally pushed it over, it wouldn't just embarrass her, it would bury her. I closed the laptop with a soft snap. The apartment was quiet, for the first time in days. The silence didn't feel lonely. It felt like the calm before a very necessary storm. Okay, Mom, I whispered. I am watching her. The fluorescent lights of the Cedar Hollow County Records Office hummed with a low, headache-inducing frequency that seemed designed to drain the will out of anyone standing in line. I stood at the counter, watching a clerk named Brenda peel the foil top off a yogurt cup while she waited for her computer to load my request. It is a specific notary journal entry, I repeated, trying to keep my voice even. From October of 2019, the notary is Dale Mercer. Brenda licked the foil lid. Like I said, honey, the journals are archived off-site if they are older than 3 years. We can request a digital pull, but that takes 7 to 10 business days. Unless you want to view the scan log on the terminal over there, you can't print from it, but you can look. I will look, I said immediately. I walked over to the designated terminal, a bulky desktop that looked like it had survived the 90s. My lawyer, Elena Park, had told me exactly what to look for. Notaries were required to keep a sequential journal of every act they performed: signature, date, time, type of document, and identification of the signer. In cases involving real property or wills, they often required a thumbprint. I typed in the search parameters, Mercer, Dale, October 2019. The screen flickered, then populated a list of scanned ledger pages. I scrolled until I found the date, October 12th. There it was. Line 14, Codicil to Will, Margaret Bailey. My heart hammered against my ribs. I leaned in, squinting at the grainy scan. The signature in the journal matched the one on the document. Shaky, weak, but my eyes drifted to the right column, the box labeled Right Thumbprint. It was blank. I sat back, the plastic chair digging into my spine. Elena said it is not illegal, I whispered to myself, rehearsing the conversation we had earlier that morning. But it is unusual, especially for a will amendment involving a dying woman. The lines above and below my mother's entry had thumbprints, a deed transfer, a power of attorney, smudged, black whorls of ink proving the signer was physically present. But for my mother, the most vulnerable person on that page, the box was empty. It wasn't a smoking gun. A missing thumbprint wouldn't overturn a will on its own. But it was a crack. It was a deviation from protocol. It suggested haste. It suggested that maybe, just maybe, the notary hadn't been as diligent as the law required, because someone in the room was rushing him. I took a picture of the screen with my phone, careful to avoid the glare. I knew it wasn't a certified copy, but it was another piece of the puzzle I was building in the For My Sanity folder. 2 days later, the war moved from the abstract to the terrifyingly concrete. I came home from work to find a thin envelope in my mailbox. The return address was a P.O. box in Nevada, but the logo in the corner made my stomach drop. Redfern Lending. This was the company that had made the soft inquiry on my credit report, the inquiry I hadn't authorized. I walked into my apartment, locked the door, and didn't even take off my coat before ripping the envelope open. It wasn't a rejection letter. It was a verification of application notice. Dear applicant, thank you for your recent application for a personal loan in the amount of $5,000. To proceed with final funding, we require you to upload a current utility bill to verify your residence, as the address on your application differs from the address on your credit file. I read the letter twice. My hands started to shake. A fine tremor that rattled the paper. Someone had actually applied. They hadn't just looked at my credit. They had tried to take out $5,000 in my name. I looked at the address listed under Applicant Address, 42 Maplewood Drive, Hawthorne Ridge. I stared at the numbers. 42 Maplewood. That wasn't my address. That wasn't my apartment. That was my mother's house, the house where Graham still lived, the house where I grew up. The air in my kitchen felt suddenly thin. To use that address, you had to know it intimately. You had to believe that mail sent there would be intercepted before I saw it. You had to be operating with a level of familiarity that ruled out random internet hackers. Only 3 people used that address as a default for family matters: Graham, Tessa, and me. I sat down on the floor, my back against the dishwasher. I felt violated. It wasn't just about the money. It was the intimacy of the theft. Someone had typed my social security number into a browser, used my childhood home as a cover, and tried to siphon cash out of my credibility. If the loan had gone through, the debt would have been mine. The default would have been mine. The financial instability Tessa loved to talk about would have become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I closed my eyes and forced the panic down. Panic was useless. Panic was what the old Madeline would do. Function, I said aloud. The word sounded flat in the empty kitchen. Function for Oliver. I stood up. I walked to my laptop. I spent the next 2 hours in a cold, mechanical frenzy. I didn't just freeze my credit. I locked it down with every secondary agency Elena had listed. Check systems, Innovis. I changed every password I owned. Email, banking, social media, the portal for Oliver's school lunches. I enabled 2-factor authentication on everything, linking it to an authenticator app, not just my phone number, I was building a digital fortress. When I was done, I felt exhausted but hardened. I looked at the Redfern letter one last time. $5,000. It was a specific amount. Not huge, not small. It was the kind of money you borrowed to pay off a credit card or fix a car. Or maybe the kind of money you borrowed just to prove that your sister was a mess who needed bailing out. I scanned the letter and emailed it to Elena. Then I put the physical copy in a fireproof lockbox under my bed. "You need to look at the communication patterns," Carmen said the next evening. She was sitting on my couch with a glass of wine, her laptop open next to mine. Oliver was asleep in his room, the white noise machine humming in the background. "What do you mean?" I asked. I was scrolling through an ancient email account I hadn't used since college, a Hotmail address that was still linked to a few old family notifications. "If Tessa has been crossing boundaries for years, there is a trail," Carmen said. "Narcissists are sloppy because they think they are entitled. They don't hide their tracks because they don't think they are doing anything wrong." I clicked on a folder labeled Family. It was a graveyard of forwarded chain emails, holiday planning threads, and passive-aggressive notes about Thanksgiving potlucks. "Search for mail," Carmen suggested. "Or privacy." I typed mail into the search bar. Dozens of results. Most were irrelevant, but one, dated from 6 years ago, caught my eye. It was an email from my mother to Tessa, with me CC'd. Subject: "Please stop." I opened it. "Tessa, I found the bill for the heating repair on the counter opened. This is the 3rd time this month. Please stop opening my mail. I know you are trying to help organize things, but I need to see my own bills before you file them. It makes me feel like a guest in my own house. Please respect this. Love, Mom." I read it out loud. "Boom," Carmen said softly. "She was doing it even when your mom was alive. I know you are trying to help. That is the cover. It is always disguised as help." "I remember this," I said, a memory surfacing through the fog. "Tessa got so angry. She didn't apologize. She called Mom ungrateful. She said, 'I am the only one keeping this house running, and you are worried about an envelope?' And then Mom backed down," Carmen guessed. "She always backed down," I said, "because fighting Tessa was exhausting. It was easier to just let her open the mail." I looked at the date. 6 years ago. The pattern wasn't new. It was foundational. Tessa believed she had a right to information. She believed her need for control superseded anyone else's right to privacy. "Save it," Carmen said. "PDF it. Add it to the timeline." I did. The For My Sanity folder was becoming a heavy thing, a digital weight that grew every day. The next day was Saturday. I needed groceries, and I needed to get out of the house. I took Oliver to the market on the other side of town, hoping to avoid running into anyone we knew. I was in the produce aisle, inspecting a carton of strawberries, when a cart bumped gently into mine. "Madeline?" I looked up, bracing myself for another pitying look from a school mom. It was my Aunt Darla. Darla Quinn was my mother's younger sister. She was the rebel of the family. She rode a motorcycle, lived in a studio apartment downtown, and had never married. My mother had loved her, but Graham had always found her abrasive. "Aunt Darla," I said, surprised. I hadn't seen her since the funeral. "Hi. Look at you," she said, her eyes crinkling. She looked at Oliver, who was busy trying to peel a sticker off a banana. "And this giant? He looks just like you." "He acts like me too," I smiled. For better or worse, Darla's expression shifted. She leaned in over the handle of her cart. "I heard about the party. Maddie, news travels fast in this toxic little town." I stiffened. "I am sure you heard Tessa's version." "I heard Tessa's version." Darla nodded. "She called me, told me you had a meltdown over a cake, said you were unstable, said she was worried she might have to intervene for the boy." My blood ran cold. "Intervene?" "That is the word she used," Darla said. Her voice dropped, becoming serious. "But here's the thing, Maddie, I didn't buy it. I know Tessa, and I knew your mother." She looked around to make sure no one was listening. Your mother spent the last 2 years of her life trying to manage Tessa's ego, Darla said. She told me once that she felt like she was a character in a play Tessa was writing. She said, Darla, if I don't die the way she wants me to, she is going to be furious. I stared at her. She said that? She did. And I always suspected that is why Tessa took over the end. She needed to be the hero. She needed the tragic spotlight. Darla reached out and squeezed my hand. Her grip was rough, calloused. I just want you to know. I see you. You are a good mother, and if she tries to pull anything legal, or if she tries to mess with that boy, I will say what I know. I will testify that your mother was terrified of her need for control. I felt a lump form in my throat, hot and painful, in 4 years. No one from the family had ever validated my reality. No one. I had been an island. Thank you, I whispered. You have no idea what that means. I think I do, Darla said. Don't let her steamroll you, honey. You are stronger than she is. You always were. That is why she hates you. I watched Darla walk away toward the frozen foods, her leather jacket creaking. I felt a sudden surge of adrenaline. I wasn't alone. I had a witness. The text came on Tuesday. Tessa. Hey, I feel like things have been tense, and I hate it. We are the only family we have left. Graham misses you. Let's do dinner. Just us 3. Briarbone. Thursday at 7? My treat. Please? I looked at the screen. Please. It was a trap. I knew it was a trap. Tessa didn't do peace talks. She did ambushes disguised as olive branches. But if I said no, I was the difficult one. I was the one refusing to heal the family. I texted Elena. Madeline. Sister wants dinner. Trap? Elena. Likely. Go. But be boring. Do not react. Do not sign anything. Do not agree to anything. Listen and gather intel. If she pushes, leave. I took a deep breath. Madeline. Okay. See you Thursday. Briarbone Bistro was the kind of place where they served steak on slate tiles and the lighting was so dim you needed a flashlight to read the menu. It was neutral ground. Public. Safe. Or so I thought. Tessa and Graham were already seated in a booth when I arrived. Graham looked nervous, shredding a cocktail napkin. Tessa looked radiant. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere sweater and gold earrings. She looked like the picture of the benevolent matriarch. Maddie, she beamed, half rising to kiss my cheek. You look great. Tired, but great. Sit. We ordered a bottle of Pinot. I sat. I will stick to water, I said. I am driving. Oh, come on. 1 glass, Tessa urged. Just water, I said pleasantly. The waiter poured my water. The conversation started with innocuous small talk. The weather, Graham's garden, the traffic. I answered in short, polite sentences. I was the gray rock. I was uninteresting. I gave her nothing to latch onto. By the time the entrees arrived, Tessa seemed frustrated by my lack of engagement. She swirled her wine, her eyes narrowing slightly. So, she said, setting her glass down, I wanted to talk about practical things. I know you hate talking about money, but we are family. I am fine. Tessa, I said, cutting into my chicken. Are you? She tilted her head. I know single parenting is expensive, and with the economy, look, I just want to make sure Oliver is covered. Graham and I were talking. Graham looked at his plate, refusing to meet my eyes. We think it would be a good idea if I was added as an emergency contact for Oliver, Tessa said. For school and the pediatrician, just in case. You know, if you are unavailable, or if you can't be reached at work. I stopped chewing. The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted legal access to my son. She wanted to be in the system. Once she was an emergency contact, she could pick him up. She could talk to the teachers. She could spin her narrative directly to the people responsible for his safety. That is not necessary, I said calmly. Carmen is my emergency contact, and my work is 10 minutes from the school. Carmen is a friend, Tessa said dismissively. I am blood. It just makes sense. Madeline, why are you being so resistant? It is just a form. It is not a form I need, I said. Thank you for the offer. Though, Tessa's smile tightened at the corners. The mask was slipping. You know, she said, her voice dropping to that faux concerned whisper she used so well. I am worried about you. You seem paranoid lately, defensive. I was thinking of stopping by the school next week anyway, just to introduce myself to the counselor. Maybe ask how Oliver is adjusting, just to make sure he's okay. Since you seem so overwhelmed, the threat hung in the air between us, heavier than the smell of truffle oil. She was threatening to go to the school counselor. She was threatening to plant the seed that I was unstable, that Oliver was struggling, that the aunt needed to be involved. It was a direct attack on my custody, disguised as concern, under the table. My hands clenched into fists. I wanted to throw my water in her face. I wanted to scream that she was a thief and a liar. But I heard Darla's voice. That is why she hates you. You are stronger. I unclenched my hands. I picked up my napkin and dabbed my mouth. I looked Tessa directly in the eye. I didn't blink. Tessa, I said. My voice was low, steady, and completely devoid of emotion. Do not contact my son's school. Do not speak to his counselor. Do not introduce yourself to his teachers. You are not his parent. You are not his guardian. If you approach his school without my written consent, I will consider it harassment, and I will take steps to stop it. The table went silent. Graham stopped eating. He looked terrified. Tessa stared at me. She looked shocked. She had expected me to cry. She had expected me to beg. She hadn't expected the wall. She laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. God, you are so dramatic. Harassment. Listen to yourself. I am trying to help. It is not help, I said. It is a boundary. Respect it. I stood up. I placed a $20 bill on the table to cover my meal. Dinner was lovely, I said. Good night, Dad. Good night, Tessa. I walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back. I felt my legs shaking as I hit the cool night air. But I didn't stop. I had done it. I had drawn the line. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 10 minutes, waiting for my heart rate to return to double digits. My phone buzzed. An email notification. It was from the county clerk's office. Subject: Records request fulfilled. Notary journal entry. I unlocked the phone, my fingers fumbling slightly. I opened the attachment. It was the digital file of the journal entry I had seen on the screen, but this one came with the metadata and the official certification. I zoomed in on the date column. I had seen the date October 12th on the screen in the office, but now, looking at the high-resolution scan, I saw something I had missed in the grainy monitor view. The date written in the journal was October 12th, but the document, the codicil itself, which I had a copy of in my bag, was dated October 14th in the text body, even though the signature line said October 12th. And then I saw it, the detail that broke the dam. The entry in the notary journal for my mother's signature, line 14, was sandwiched between two other entries. Line 13 was dated October 15th. Line 15 was dated October 15th. You cannot write an entry for October 12th after an entry for October 15th in a sequential journal. It was physically impossible, unless you went back and squeezed it in. Unless you found a blank line that had been skipped and filled it in later. The notary had backdated the entry. My mother died on October 15th. If the entry was made on or after the 15th, but claimed to be the 12th, it meant the document wasn't signed when they said it was. It meant the document might have been signed after she was already gone, or signed by someone else when she was too far gone to hold a pen. The discrepancy was right there, in black and white ink. I looked at the restaurant window where Tessa was likely still sipping her wine, complaining to Graham about how difficult I was. You messed up, I whispered. You got arrogant, and you messed up. I put the car in drive. I wasn't just bringing a knife to a gunfight anymore. I was bringing a cannon. The fluorescent lights in Elena Park's office seemed brighter than usual. illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air between us. On her desk lay the high-resolution printout of the notary journal entry, the one with the impossible timeline. "It is a chronological impossibility," Elena said, her voice clipped and professional. She tapped the paper with the end of her pen. "You cannot have an entry for October 12th squeezed between two entries for October 15th, not unless you have a time machine." I stared at the document. It was just a piece of paper, a scan from a county ledger, but it felt like a weapon. "So it is fake," I said. "The amendment, the codicil that gave Tessa control, it is fake. It strongly suggests the document was not signed when it claims to have been signed," Elena corrected gently. "And given that your mother passed away on the 15th, and the surrounding entries are from the 15th, the implication is that this document was created and notarized after she was already gone, or, at the very least, when she was no longer conscious." I felt a cold shiver ripple through me. Starting at the base of my neck, I had suspected it. I had felt it in my gut since the birthday party. But hearing it laid out in legal terms made it real. It wasn't just family drama anymore. It was fraud. It was a crime. "There is more," Elena said. She opened a folder and slid a second document across the polished wood of the desk. It was an affidavit. "We looked into the witness," Elena said. "Mara Hensley, the nurse whose name was spelled two different ways on the document. I looked at the paper. It was a court filing from a divorce case in Maricopa County, Arizona. In October of 2019, Mara Hensley was going through a contentious custody dispute," Elena explained. "She filed this affidavit stating she was in Phoenix from October 10th to October 17th to attend a mediation hearing. She provided flight records to the court." I looked up at Elena, my mouth slightly open. "She wasn't even here." "She was 500 miles away," Elena said, "which means she could not have witnessed your mother signing a will in Hawthorne Ridge on October 12th. The silence in the office was heavy. I sat back in the leather chair, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and nausea. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't the sensitive sister imagining slights. My sister had forged a will. She had likely paid a notary to backdate an entry and forged a witness's signature, or found someone to impersonate her. "What does this mean?" I asked. "For the estate?" "It means the amendment is invalid," Elena said. "It means the original will, the one where your father was the sole executor and you were a 50-50 beneficiary, is likely the only valid document. It warrants a petition to reopen probate. It warrants an investigation." She paused, taking off her glasses. "But Madeline, I need you to understand what happens if we file this. We are accusing your sister of a felony. We are accusing a notary of misconduct. This becomes a public record. The moment we file, the bomb goes off." "I know," I said. My voice was steady, surprising even me. "But I can't live like this. She is trying to ruin my credit. She is trying to take my reputation. If I don't stop her, she will never stop." "Okay," Elena said. She pulled a file toward her. "Then we prepare the petition, but before we file, you need to be sure you are ready to lose the peace, because you won't get it back." "I never had it," I said. "I just had the silence." I drove straight to my father's house. I didn't call. I didn't text. I just drove. The house looked the same as always. The paint peeling slightly on the shutters. The hydrangeas dead in the front yard. It was a monument to stagnation. I found Graham in the den, watching a golf tournament with the volume turned low. He looked up when I entered, guilt flashing across his face before he could mask it with annoyance. "Madeline," he said, "I thought we talked about you calling first." "Sit down." "Dad," I said. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I pulled the ottoman over and sat directly in front of him, so our knees were almost touching. I forced him to look at me. "I know about the notary," I said softly. "I know about the dates in the journal. I know Mara Hensley was in Arizona." Graham's face crumbled. It wasn't a dramatic collapse. It was a slow, pathetic sagging of his features. The air seemed to go out of him. "And I know you didn't sign those papers," I continued. "But you knew. You knew she did it." "I didn't know the details," he whispered, his voice shaking. "I swear, Maddie, I didn't look. She brought papers to the table. She said, 'Dad, just sign here. I will handle the filing.' She said it was what Mom wanted." "You knew Mom didn't want Tessa handling the paperwork," I said. "Lorraine told me. Mom told you too, didn't she?" Graham looked down at his hands. They were spotted with age, trembling slightly on his lap. "I was so tired. Madeline," he said. "You have to understand. Your mother, she was a force. Losing her was like losing the gravity in the room. I was floating. I couldn't breathe. And Tessa was loud. She was angry. She was demanding. And I was quiet," I said. "You were quiet," he agreed. "You were grieving. I thought if I just let Tessa have this, she would calm down. I thought if she felt important, she would stop picking at you. I just wanted the fighting to stop. I wanted peace." "You traded me for peace," I said. The words hung there. He didn't deny it. He couldn't. "I am sorry," he wept, tears tracking through the stubble on his cheeks. "I am so sorry, Maddie." I watched him cry, a year ago. I would have hugged him. I would have told him it was okay, that I understood, that we would fix it. I would have absorbed his pain to make him feel better, but I sat still. "I am not going to hug you, Dad," I said, "because you let her steal from me. You let her try to ruin my name. You let her treat me like I was the mistake, just so you wouldn't have to deal with her temper." I stood up. I felt a profound, aching sadness, but it was clean. It was the sadness of an ending. "I am going to fix this," I said, "but I am doing it without you." I walked out of the room, leaving him sobbing in the blue light of the television. Tessa must have sensed the shift in the atmosphere, the way a predator senses a change in the wind. Over the next few days, the aggression stopped. The insults stopped. Instead, the charm offensive began. She sent a text on Tuesday. "Hey, I saw the cutest winter coats at the mall. I bought one for Oliver. Can I drop it by?" "No, thank you," I replied. "He has a coat." She tried again on Wednesday. "I have tickets to the aquarium for Saturday. VIP passes. I thought I could pick Oliver up, and we could have an auntie-nephew day. We already have plans." I wrote back. "What plans?" she asked immediately. "Plans," I replied. I wasn't punishing Oliver. If Tessa had been a safe person, I would have loved for him to go to the aquarium. But she wasn't safe. She was a person who used generosity as a receipt to be cashed in later. Every gift came with a hook. "Look what I did for him. Look how much I love him. His mother can't afford this, but I can." I wasn't going to let my son be a prop in her redemption arc. On Friday night, there was a winter art showcase at Oliver's school. It was a small event. Cookies, juice, and finger paintings taped to the gymnasium walls. I didn't invite Tessa. I didn't invite Graham. I was standing by a jagged, colorful painting that Oliver swore was a dinosaur, holding his hand, when I felt the air pressure change. "There is my little Picasso." Tessa swept into the gym. She was wearing a white wool coat that looked stunning and completely out of place among the parents in jeans and parkas. She had a professional-looking camera around her neck. She ignored me completely and crouched down in front of Oliver. "Ollie, look at this," she cooed. "Did you paint this? It is amazing. We need a photo." She grabbed Oliver's shoulder and tried to pull him toward her, angling the camera for a selfie. "Come here. Smile for Aunt Tessa." Oliver looked confused. He looked at me. I stepped in. I didn't make a scene. I didn't raise my voice. I simply stepped between Tessa and my son, breaking her hold on him. I placed my hands on Oliver's shoulders and turned him toward the wall. "We are looking at the art right now," I said calmly. Tessa stood up, her face flushing a dark, angry red. "I am just taking a picture. Madeline," she hissed. "God, you are so controlling. It is for the family album. No, I said. I looked her in the eye. He is not a prop. He is my nephew, she snapped. And I am his mother, I said. And I said no. I turned my back on her. I looked at the other parents. A few were watching, their eyes wide. Cara Densley was standing near the punch bowl, looking uncomfortable. Come on, Oliver, I said. Let's go look at Leo's painting. We walked away. Tessa stood there for a moment, the camera hanging uselessly around her neck, before she turned and stormed out of the gym, her heels clicking loudly on the hardwood floor. I felt a tremble in my knees, but I kept walking. I kept smiling at my son. I held the line. That night, the retaliation arrived. It came in the form of a direct message on Instagram from a burner account with 0 followers and no profile picture. Thought you should know what your sister is saying about you. Attached were 3 screenshots of text messages. The sender name at the top was Tessa. The recipient appeared to be Cara Densley. Screenshot 1. Tessa. It is just sad. Honestly, I try so hard to be there for Oliver because I know Madeline struggles. She has always had sticky fingers. You know she took Mom's emerald earrings right out of the jewelry box before the funeral? Screenshot 2. Tessa. I never filed a report because I didn't want her to go to jail. But now that she is broke, I am worried she is going to come after the estate. She thinks the world owes her a living. Screenshot 3. Tessa. Just be careful around her. She plays the victim, but she is vicious. Mom always said she was the selfish one. I stared at the phone, the emerald earrings. My mother had been buried in those earrings. I had put them on her ears myself at the funeral home. Tessa had been there. She had watched me do it. But the truth didn't matter. Tessa was planting landmines. She was seeding the community with the idea that I was a thief and a gold digger, so that when the lawsuit dropped, everyone would say, "Oh, well, of course Madeline is suing. She is desperate for money." Tessa told us this would happen. It was reputational sabotage. It was a preemptive strike. I felt a surge of nausea, but I didn't reply to the anonymous account. I took screenshots of the screenshots. I added them to the folder. For my sanity, the folder was full now. It was bursting. "We are ready," Elena said on Monday morning. We were sitting in her conference room again. The petition was drafted. In re, the estate of Margaret Bailey. Petition to revoke probate and challenge validity of codicil. Once I file this, Elena warned, her hand hovering over the file. It is public. The clerk will notify Tessa. She will have 20 days to respond. It will get ugly. File it, I said. There is one more thing, Elena said. In the process of pulling the financial records for the fraud alert, we found something else, a small account at Harbor Glen Credit Union. I don't bank at Harbor Glen, I said. Neither did my parents. Your mother did, Elena said. It is an old savings account. It has been dormant for 4 years, but it hasn't escheated to the state yet because there was a small automatic transfer going into it until the day she died. She handed me a statement. Account holder, Margaret Bailey, balance, $12,400. Beneficiary designation, payable on death to Madeline Bailey. I stared at the paper, $12,000. It wasn't a fortune, but it was there. Tessa never mentioned this, I said. Because she couldn't touch it, Elena said. Payable on death accounts bypass probate. They go directly to the beneficiary. The executor has no control over them, but she likely hid the statements so you wouldn't know it existed. She hid it, I whispered. She knew Mom left this for me, and she just left it sitting there. It proves intent, Elena said. It proves your mother wanted you to have resources. It contradicts the narrative that she didn't trust you with money. I traced my mother's name on the statement. This was her safety net for me. She had tucked it away. Safe from Tessa's prying eyes. Safe from the estate drama, if anything happens. Don't let your sister be the only one holding the papers. She had tried to protect me, and Tessa had tried to erase that protection. I stood up. File the petition, Elena, but wait until tomorrow morning. I have one stop to make first. I didn't go to my father's house. I went to Tessa's. She lived in a pristine, white brick townhouse in the trendy part of Hawthorne Ridge. It was the kind of house that looked like a magazine spread. White sofas, glass tables, abstract art that cost more than my car. I rang the bell. Tessa opened the door. She was wearing yoga pants and a sweatshirt, holding a glass of green juice. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed. "Madeline? I thought you had plans." "I do," I said. "Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped back. "Sure. Come in. Take off your shoes. Please. The rug is new." I stepped inside. The house smelled of eucalyptus and cold ambition. I didn't sit down. I stood in the center of her living room, feeling the plush wool under my feet. "What is this about?" Tessa asked, leaning against the kitchen island. "Are you finally ready to apologize for the scene at the school?" "I am not here to apologize," I said. I reached into my bag and pulled out a single manila envelope. I placed it on the glass coffee table. "What is that?" she asked. "It is a copy of the notary journal entry from October 12th, 2019, I said. "The one where you squeezed Mom's signature in between two entries from October 15th. Tessa went perfectly still. The glass of green juice paused halfway to her mouth. "I also have the affidavit from Mara Hensley," I continued, my voice calm, factual. "Who was in Phoenix, Arizona, on the day she supposedly watched Mom sign her will in your kitchen." Tessa set the glass down. Her movements were slow, deliberate. "And," I said, "I have the letter from Redfern Lending, the one regarding the $5,000 loan application made from this address, using my social security number." I looked at her. "I know, Tessa, I know everything." I expected her to scream. I expected her to cry, to deny, to throw me out. She didn't. She stared at me, her face completely blank. Her eyes were cold, dead things. The mask of the loving, concerned sister evaporated, leaving something hard and unrecognizable underneath. "You went digging," she said. It wasn't a question. "I did. Graham told you to leave it alone. Graham is afraid of you," I said. "I am not," Tessa laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. She walked around the island and stood in front of me. She was taller than me, but I didn't step back. "You think you are so smart," she said. "You think because you found some paperwork, you have won? You have no idea how this works. Madeline, you are going to drag our family through the mud. You are going to embarrass Dad. You are going to ruin Mom's memory." "You ruined Mom's memory when you forged her signature," I said. "You ruined it when you stole her voice." "I saved this family," she hissed, her voice suddenly dropping to a venomous whisper. "I saved it. Mom was a mess at the end. Dad was useless. Someone had to take charge. Someone had to be the adult. I did what had to be done." "You did what you wanted to do," I said. "You wanted the control. You wanted the money. And you wanted to make sure I stayed the little sister who couldn't handle anything." I looked around the perfect room. I found the Harbor Glen account. "Tessa. The one she left for me. You hid that too. It wasn't about the money, was it? $12,000 doesn't pay for this rug." Tessa's face twisted. "She didn't trust you. She trusted me enough to leave it to me," I said. "She didn't trust you. That is why she hid it." Tessa took a step closer, invading my personal space. "You are not taking my life from me," she said. "I built this. I am the one everyone respects. I am the one who holds it together. If you file that lawsuit, if you expose this, I will destroy you. I will make sure every person in this town knows exactly how unstable you are." I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in years. I didn't see the powerful older sister anymore. I saw a terrified, hollow woman who had built a castle on a foundation of lies. She needed to be the hero so badly that she had become a criminal to sustain the illusion. She needed me to be the scapegoat because without a villain, her heroism meant nothing. "It is already filed." I lied. It wasn't filed yet, but it would be in the morning. It is over, Tessa. Her eyes widened. For a split second, I saw true fear. If you do this, she whispered, her voice shaking with rage, you will lose everyone, Graham, the aunts, the family friends. They will hate you for this. I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. It was the peace of realizing that the things I was afraid of losing had already been gone for a long time. Then they were never mine, I said. I turned and walked to the door. Get out, she screamed behind me, the mask finally shattering completely. Get out of my house. I opened the door and stepped out into the cool evening air. I walked to my car, my heart beating a steady, strong rhythm. I didn't look back at the white townhouse. I didn't look back at the sister I had lost years ago. I drove home to my son. I had a petition to file. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the noise it would make. The morning Elena Park filed the petition, the sky over Hawthorne Ridge was a bruised, heavy gray. I sat at my kitchen table, watching the email confirmation notification blink on my phone screen. Petition to revoke probate filed. Case number 24-PRO-089. It was done. I had pulled the pin on the grenade. I expected an explosion. What I got instead was a swarm. Within 48 hours, my phone became a device of harassment. It wasn't Tessa calling. She was too smart for that now. It was the extended family, people I hadn't spoken to since my mother's funeral, cousins who lived 3 states away, aunts who sent generic Christmas cards. They all suddenly had urgent opinions on my moral character. Madeline, what are you doing to your father? My Aunt Linda voicemailed me. He is an old man. Why are you dragging up the past? You are going to give him a heart attack. We heard you are suing Tessa. A cousin named Mike texted. Pretty low to go after money when she took care of everything. Grow up. I didn't reply. I didn't defend myself. I knew exactly where these narratives were coming from. Tessa was working the phones. She was spinning the story before the facts could catch up. In her version, I was the greedy, estranged sister coming out of the woodwork to cash in. In her version, she was the victim of my instability. I archived the messages. I blocked the numbers that became abusive. I kept the For My Sanity folder open. But I didn't add the insults to it. They were just noise. The only thing that mattered now was what the judge would see. 3 days after the filing, Graham showed up. I was unloading groceries from the car. I saw his sedan pull up to the curb, tires crunching on the dead leaves. He got out slowly. He looked 10 years older than he had last week. His shoulders were hunched, and he was clutching a white envelope. Maddie, he said. He didn't come closer. He stood by the bumper of my car, looking at his shoes. Dad, I said. I set the grocery bag down on the pavement. If you are here to tell me to drop it, save your breath. I am not here to fight, he said. His voice was thin, reedy. I am here to offer you a solution. He held out the envelope. What is this? It is a check, he said. For $20,000, it is from my personal savings, not the estate. Just me. I stared at the envelope. You are trying to pay me off. I am trying to help you, he pleaded, his eyes finally meeting mine. They were wet, red-rimmed. She is on a warpath. Maddie, she has hired a litigator from the city. She is going to drag you through the mud. She is going to bring up every mistake you ever made. I don't want to see you destroyed. So you want me to take $20,000 and go away? I want you to handle it privately, he said. Take the money, use it for Oliver. Just withdraw the petition, please. For the family. I felt a profound, hollow ache in my chest. Even now, facing the evidence of fraud, facing the reality that his oldest daughter had committed a crime. His instinct was to bury it. He was willing to pay to keep the silence. It is not about the money, Dad, I said quietly. It never was. If I take this check, I am agreeing that what she did was okay. I am agreeing that I am the one who needs to be managed. I am agreeing to the lie. It is just a court case. Madeline, it won't bring your mother back. No, I said, but it will give me my life back. It will give me the truth. I picked up my grocery bag. Keep your money, Dad. You are going to need it for Tessa's legal fees. I turned and walked up the stairs to my apartment. I heard him calling my name. But I didn't stop. I locked the door and leaned against it, breathing hard. I wasn't bargaining for hush money. I was refusing the family's habit of burying harm. The hearing was set for a Tuesday morning at the Cedar Hollow Superior Court. I spent the night before in a state of rigid, controlled anxiety. I laid out my clothes, a simple navy blazer and gray slacks. I printed 3 copies of every document. I practiced my breathing exercises. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. I didn't tell Oliver where I was going. I told him I had a boring work meeting. I arranged for Carmen to pick him up early and take him to the Science Museum for the day. He won't know a thing, Carmen promised when she arrived at 7 in the morning. She hugged me tight. Go get her. And remember, you are the one with the receipts. I am just the one with the questions, I said. The judge has the answers. I drove to the courthouse in silence. The building was an imposing structure of brick and stone, designed to make you feel small. I walked through the metal detector, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Elena was waiting for me outside Department 4. She looked calm, sharp, and ready. How are you? She asked. Nauseous, I admitted. Good. That means you are alert. Just remember the strategy. We are not here to scream. We are here to show the timeline. The dates do the talking. We walked in. Tessa was already there. She was sitting at the respondent's table with her lawyer, a man in an expensive suit who looked bored. Tessa looked impeccable. She was wearing a modest black dress and pearls. She had her hair pulled back in a soft bun. She looked grieving. She looked dignified. She looked like the perfect daughter who was being persecuted by her ungrateful sister. She glanced at me as I sat down. Her expression was one of pity. It was a masterclass in nonverbal manipulation. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Holloway entered. He was an older man with a face like crumpled parchment and reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. Estate of Bailey, he mumbled, shuffling files. Petition to revoke probate. Counsel, state your appearances. The hearing began. It wasn't like the movies. There were no surprise witnesses bursting through the doors. There was no shouting. It was dry, procedural, and incredibly tense. Tessa's lawyer started. He painted a picture of me that was unrecognizable. He described me as estranged and financially unstable. He claimed I was motivated by resentment over not receiving a larger inheritance. He characterized the petition as a frivolous attempt to harass the executor. I sat with my hands folded, digging my nails into my palms to keep from shaking. Tessa stared straight ahead, a single tear tracking down her cheek at the perfect moment. Then it was Elena's turn. She didn't use adjectives. She used math. She put the notary journal entry on the overhead projector. Your Honor, Elena said, her voice cool and clear. This acts as the cornerstone of the respondent's authority. Please note the date in the journal, October 12th. Please note the location of the entry. It sits between 2 entries dated October 15th. The sequential nature of a notary journal is a legal requirement. It is impossible for the 12th to occur after the 15th unless the entry was made retroactively. The judge leaned forward, squinting at the screen. Furthermore, Elena continued, we have submitted a sworn affidavit from the listed witness, Mara Hensley, on the date this document was allegedly signed in Hawthorne Ridge. Ms. Hensley was in a court-ordered mediation in Phoenix, Arizona. We have attached her flight records. The room went very quiet. The scratching of the court reporter's machine was the only sound. Tessa's lawyer stood up. Your Honor, these are clerical errors. The notary made a mistake with the dates. It happens. It does not invalidate the intent of the deceased. A clerical error involving a timeline impossibility and an absent witness is not a clerical error. Judge Holloway said. His voice was dry, devoid of patience. It is a discrepancy. He looked at Tessa. For the first time, her composure cracked. She shifted in her seat, her hand going to her throat. I am not ruling on the validity of the will today, the judge said. This is a preliminary hearing. However, the evidence presented regarding the execution of the codicil is sufficiently concerning to warrant a full evidentiary hearing. He banged his gavel once. The court orders a stay on all estate assets. Ms. Bailey, he nodded at Tessa, you are suspended as executor pending the outcome of an investigation. I am also referring the matter of the notary entry to the Secretary of State's office for review. And regarding the loan application matters raised in the petitioner's brief, that is a matter for the police, not this court, but I suggest counsel take it very seriously. We are adjourned. It wasn't a total victory. Tessa wasn't in handcuffs, the money wasn't returned yet, but the suspended executorship was a hammer blow. It meant she had lost control. I stood up. My legs felt like jelly, but I didn't collapse. We walked out into the hallway. The air felt cooler, cleaner. That went well, Elena said, packing her briefcase. Suspension is huge. She is locked out of the accounts as of this minute. Madeline, I turned. Tessa was coming down the hallway. Her lawyer tried to grab her arm, but she shook him off. The mask of the grieving daughter was gone. Her face was twisted in ugly, raw fury. Tessa, don't, her lawyer hissed. She stopped 3 feet from me. She was breathing hard. You think you won? She spat. You think you are special? You are just a mess. Madeline, you are a selfish, destructive mess. You are Mom's mirror. You are exactly like her. You destroy everything you touch because you are too weak to hold it. She said it loud enough for the bailiffs to hear. She wanted me to scream back. She wanted me to prove her right. I looked at her. I saw the fear behind the rage. I saw a woman who had spent her entire life running from her own mediocrity by controlling everyone else. Stop using her to hurt me, I said. My voice was low, steady, and final. Mom is gone, and I am not her, and I am not you. I turned my back on her. Madeline, she screamed. I kept walking. I walked past the security guards. I walked past the metal detectors. I walked out the heavy glass doors into the sunlight. I was halfway to my car when I heard a voice call my name from the parking lot. Maddie? I froze. It wasn't Tessa. I turned to see Lorraine Wexler standing by a silver Honda. She was clutching her purse, looking nervous. Lorraine? I walked over. What are you doing here? I heard the hearing was today, she said. Kara told me. I couldn't go in. I didn't want to see the fighting, but I waited. She opened her purse and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. It was sealed with old-fashioned wax, the kind my mother used to use for Christmas cards. Your mother gave me this, Lorraine said, her hands trembling. About 2 weeks before she died. She said, Lorraine, keep this. If the girls stay friends, burn it. But if they ever turn on each other, if Tessa ever tries to rewrite history, give this to Madeline. I took the envelope. It felt heavy. It felt warm. I should have given it to you sooner, Lorraine said. But I was scared. I didn't want to be the one to break the seal. But after what I heard about the notary, you need this. Thank you, I whispered. I got into my car. I locked the doors. I sat in the driver's seat with the envelope in my lap for a long time. Finally, I slid my finger under the flap and broke the wax. I pulled out a single sheet of stationery. My mother's handwriting was shaky, the loops of the letters trailing off, but it was legible. My dearest Madeline, if you are reading this, then my worst fear has happened. I am so sorry. I need you to know something that I was too cowardly to say when I was alive. I love your sister, but I am afraid of her. She has a hunger in her. Madeline, a need to control the world because she doesn't feel safe in it. I let her take over the paperwork because I didn't have the strength to fight her. And I knew if I said no, she would punish you. I tried to protect you by hiding the little account at the credit union. I tried to protect you by keeping you away from the heavy lifting at the end. But I failed you. I let you think you were the weak one. You were never the weak one, Maddie. You were the only one strong enough to live without needing to control everyone else. Do not let her rewrite us. Do not let her make you small. You are the best of me. Please forgive me for not protecting you better. Love, Mom. I put the letter down on the dashboard. I stared through the windshield at the courthouse, at the people walking by in their suits, at the clouds moving across the sky. I cried. I didn't cry the panicked, hyperventilating tears of the last month. I cried deep, chest-heaving sobs of relief. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the notary journal. It was about the sentence. You were never the weak one. For 33 years. I had carried the label Tessa gave me. Selfish, sensitive, weak. I had let it define me. I had let it dictate how I parented, how I lived, how I walked into a room, and here, from the grave. My mother had cut the string. It was validation without revenge. It was the truth. I wiped my face with my sleeve. I looked at my eyes in the rearview mirror. They looked red, puffy, and tired. But they looked clear. I forgive you. Mom, I whispered. I picked Oliver up from Carmen's at 4. Did you catch the bad guys? Oliver asked, buckling his seatbelt. He was holding a plastic dinosaur he had gotten from the museum gift shop. Something like that, I smiled. But the boring kind of bad guys, the kind who use paperwork. Boring, Oliver decided. Can we have pizza? We can have pizza, I said. And cupcakes. We went home. The apartment was warm and quiet. I made a simple dinner. We sat on the floor of the living room, eating pepperoni pizza out of the box. I brought out the leftover cupcakes from the freezer, the ones from the party that had started it all. I put a single candle in one. Is it my birthday again? Oliver asked, eyes widening. No, I said. It is a redo. For both of us. A redo of the moment before the yelling. I lit the candle. The flame flickered, casting a soft gold light on my son's face. Make a wish, I said. Oliver closed his eyes tight. He thought for a long time, then he blew it out. What did you wish for? I asked. I wished for a jetpack, he said seriously. I laughed. It was a real laugh, bubbling up from my stomach. Good wish. I looked around the room. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't the white brick townhouse Tessa lived in. It was small. It was rented, but it was safe. There were no secrets here. There were no forged documents in the drawers. There was no one waiting to humiliate us. It was a fortress of stability, and I had built it. I put Oliver to bed an hour later. I read him The Velveteen Rabbit. I smoothed his hair back from his forehead. I love you, Mom, he mumbled, half asleep. I love you. Oh, I said. I will always keep you safe. I went into the living room and sat on the couch. I poured myself a glass of water. The adrenaline of the day was fading, leaving a heavy exhaustion in its wake. I picked up my phone to check the time. There was a notification. Voicemail received, 8:42 p.m. Unknown number, I frowned. My number was unlisted now. Only a few people had it. I pressed play. There was a crackle of static. Then a voice. It was a man's voice, rough, hesitant. Ms. Bailey? You don't know me. My name is Dale Mercer. I saw the news about the hearing today, about the suspension. My breath hitched. Dale Mercer, the notary, the man whose name was on the stamp. Look, I don't want to go to jail. The voice continued, sounding scared. Your sister told me it was legal. She said she had power of attorney. She said your mom was too sick to sign, but wanted it this way. But if the cops are getting involved, I am not going down for her. He paused. I could hear him breathing. And there is something else. There was another document she made me stamp that day. Something about a life insurance trust. It wasn't filed with the court. She kept it. If you really want the truth, if you want to know where the rest of the money went, call me back tonight. The message ended. I stared at the phone. The little black screen reflected my face. It wasn't over. The will was just the surface. There was an insurance trust. There was more theft. There was more betrayal. My thumb hovered over the callback button. I could delete it. I could take the win I had today, the suspension, the validation, the letter from Mom, and walk away. I could live my life, or I could finish it. I could burn the whole rot out of the family tree, root and branch. I looked at the bedroom door where my son was sleeping. I thought about the selfish mother Tessa had tried to paint me as. A selfish mother would walk away to save herself the pain. A strong mother would make sure the monster never came back. I took a deep breath. I pressed the button. Thank you so much for listening to At My Son's Birthday. My sister called me, selfish like your mom, for cutting the cake. This was a story about gaslighting, the quiet strength of breaking generational trauma, and the lengths a mother will go to protect her peace. I would love to hear your thoughts on Madeline's decision at the end. Did she make the right choice to call the notary back, or should she have walked away with the peace she had found? Please leave a comment below letting me know where you are listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories so you never miss an episode. Until next time, stay safe and trust your instincts.